All right. Looks like we're live.
Hi,
Hey, everybody. Chris Gilmore here and
Laura Gilmore.
from Wild Muskoka Botanicals. And we thought we'd give a try doing some live streaming. So we're actually back in the bush right now. And I hope our reception is working strong enough that we actually get a quality video for you today. Laura, what are we up to today?
We are picking wild leeks.
Yeah, wild leeks. So one of our favorite spring edibles that we forage. Laura's got a big bag already harvested over there. There's one of the leaves right there. And in today's video, we're basically going to just share kind of what wild leeks are about, what we love about harvesting them, talk about the habitat, talking about how to harvest them sustainably, and then of course, what do we do for them for food in the end. We make two products out of our wild leeks. So we make a wild salt and we make a wild leek vinegar. But let's start off with what makes sense first. I want to talk about the habitat that we're in. Where do you even find wild leeks to begin with?
Well, we're in Ontario, central Ontario in Canada, but wild leeks will range all the way in the Carolinian and Great Lakes, St. Lawrence lowlands forest types, typically where maples grow. So sugar maple is one of the most common species that you'll find wild leeks growing in. And in our region, south-facing slopes dominated by sugar maples are the place we most commonly will find wild leeks here.
Yeah, let me just show you what it looks like around here. You can literally see all of that green. It's like a sea of green around me are all the wild leeks. So if I get up and stand up right now, you'll see if I face this way, you're probably going to get blinded in a second. There's the sun behind me. Oh yeah, that's actually not too bad. But you'll notice that we're basically on that classic south-facing slope that Laura mentioned about, and it's literally a sea of green around here. So that's really, really exciting. That's what we want to see when we come out here harvesting leeks to start with. We want to see lots and lots of them, and we're looking for those south-facing maple ridges up in this habitat. Now, one thing we really want to chat about that's very important to us, though, is sustainability when harvesting leeks. And there's a few tricks that are pretty important when it comes to that. I'm just going to show Laura's down here clipping some right now. But Lo, let's chat a little bit about sustainability and how do we make sure that we're not having a negative impact on the environment when we're out here harvesting?
Yeah, well, first maybe just a little bit on why it's important, because not all, we harvest each species differently. So wild leeks are a native species, again, native to all of kind of the eastern seaboard, anywhere the Carolinian woodlands are, or Great Lakes St. Lawrence woodlands, but they're a native species, and they are what we call an ephemeral species. So they are one of those spring wildflowers. So they first thing in the spring, you can see we're in these forests of deep green, and until basically they fill out almost their entire life cycle for the year before the trees even leaf out. So they're taking advantage of the sun before the trees leaf out, and then this forest will be totally cast in shade. So by mid-June, these plants will have no leaves anymore. They'll flower and they'll seed. But what that kind of means from a sustainability perspective is that these plants take a very long time to reproduce. So these plants, a single plant might take 7 to 10 years before it's actually able to put out flowers and produce seeds and actually spread. That's primarily how they spread, is by seed. So when you harvest a bulb of a plant, particularly one that has 3 leaves or potentially is flower, it's a plant that's over 10 years old. And it takes many years for these patches to regenerate. So when people go in and they dig the bulbs, that can, if you keep going back to the same place year after year, lots of people go to the same patch. That's how wild leeks have been wiped out through most of their range. So in Ontario, we have very healthy populations of wild leeks. They are not considered an endangered species, but in a large portion of their overall range, going into the southern states and into places like Quebec, they actually have been overharvested. In some states in the US, they are listed as a at-risk or threatened species.
And we've definitely found patches around here that have been pretty devastated, by kind of novice foragers coming out and just thinking they can take as much as they want and not really realizing how slow wild leeks actually are to regenerate.
Yeah.
So
so for us, we've just really decided that to protect the abundant populations that we still have here, harvesting leaf only is actually the most sustainable way. And from a business perspective, it's also the most sustainable way. It allows us to actually return to the same foraging patches every year, and be able to continue, which instead of having to go out and find new places. So, from an environmental sense, from a business sense, just from a moral sense, we don't have to be disturbing the ground. It's just a much more peaceful process to just be here with just a little pair of scissors, snipping away. A few leaves at a time. And when we walk away from the forest here, it really doesn't even look like we were here. And that's kind of our goal.
Yeah, awesome. And that's not to say that you can't sustainably harvest the bulbs. Like we will harvest some bulbs each season, make leek soup and stuff with them. But if you are harvesting the bulbs, just know that there is that potential to have a bigger impact. So that's why you want to be harvesting in places where there's an abundance, like the giant sea of green around us right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that we're the only people harvesting this. We're on harvest public land right now, or sorry,
No,
private land right
private
now.
land. Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't go onto public land and probably harvest bulbs in any quantity because I don't really know who else is out there harvesting, and that's where things can really shift.
Yeah.
Let's just look at the anatomy of a leek for a second here and show us what you're actually doing. Could we maybe pull one up just so we can take a look at the bulb and stuff?
Yeah, it's so funny. I'm so used to not digging anymore that I'm a little out of practice. Oops, this one broke off.
Well, that's okay. I think we can look at that one still.
Mm-hmm. So here's the bulb that people are typically going after. The roots broke off, but that's okay because that'll mean that this will actually keep growing, probably. But that's the like white bulb. So this is generally where the plant's going to store all of its starches and sugars that it produces in that very short spring season. And then these will lay dormant underground all year long. And then the leaves, and then this plant has 3 leaves, so it's quite mature.
So a younger plant would only have 1 leaf or 2 leaves?
1 leaf. They'll start as 1. So if you look here, you'll see these are all young plants right here, that are only a few years, probably a year or 2 old. And then the bigger plants have 3 leaves, and then by next week we'll start to see actually the flower stalks start to come up from between the leaves, and then the leaves die back, and then you'll actually get these white globe-shaped flowers that will bloom all through the forest, and then the seeds are ready in the fall.
You can kind of see some of the old seed heads here. They don't have any of the berries on them. I don't know if you see any. You see the odd one around that still has them on, but basically they release these seeds in the fall, and we're actually going to come back to this patch in the fall and collect some of the seeds and help spread them and propagate them around the forest a little bit more. So,
no seeds.
Okay. Well, anyway, so that's how we harvest the bulbs, and there we looked at the pieces. So why don't we chat about how we harvest them? Because we do this on a commercial scale because we make our wild salt and our wild vinegar, and we'll talk about what those are in just a moment. But before we do that, why don't we just show how we harvest them to make sure that we're being sustainable when we actually harvest such a large quantity of them?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what we do is we just harvest leaves. So we use scissors, and then I'll just go through a patch and I'll clip 1 leaf per plant. If it's an extremely dense patch, sometimes you can snip a mature plant and they'll come back next year. But the best way to do it is just to go through and snip individual leaves. And it's much tidier than digging in the dirt. It's actually a lot faster, and I find the leaves have just as much flavor as the bulbs.
Yeah, that's one thing we've definitely noticed over the years, that like only harvesting the leaves, you get all the flavor that we want from the root, in the leaf there. So even for making leek soup and stuff like that, I don't find you necessarily actually need to harvest the bulbs. So this way we're having way less of an impact on the forest floor, not needing to disturb it. And we're not really having any negative impact on the plant, just taking that single leaf.
Yeah, these do just fine getting harvested. Sometimes if I see a patch of like little baby ones, I might trim a little more aggressively just to give some babies a little light, knowing that the adult roots will absolutely come back no problem. Oh, and when I'll see places where the leaves are all stuck up, and I can't help but always release those. I always feel like it's like someone who's stuck. and I just helped them out there a little bit.
A little bit of on-the-spot caretaking there.
Yeah.
Cool. So then once we've harvested, you'll see we've got this big bag right here, all loaded up. And then the next step is to bring it back to our commercial processing facility. And we turn it into 2 different products. So we make a wild leek vinegar. I forgot, I wanted to bring a bottle out to show you today. But we do a wild leek vinegar, which is basically the wild leek leaves that are infused in Phil Singer's organic apple cider vinegar. So it's an organic apple cider vinegar. It tastes fantastic. I love it, like drizzled on like steamed veggies, like steamed asparagus, steamed broccoli, steamed kale. It's also really nice as salad dressing, cut with a little bit of olive oil. It can do really good in stir fries. You know, I love it in a stir fry. Do you have another favorite one?
Oh, our friend used it in their French onion soup when they deglazed
Oh, yeah.
the onions that you really cook down at the end. It's a really nice way to use it, and in marinades.
Oh yeah, marinades as well too. But the French onion soup, that was actually just the other night, and it was actually one of the landowners where we go over and harvest our wild leeks from, that made the French onion soup with our wild leek vinegar in it. And oh my goodness, was it delicious! So that's the wild leek vinegar. And if you're interested in that, you can go check out wildmuskoka.com. If you want to support small growers and sustainable foraging, then that would mean the world to us. If you want to try some out and you don't have a wild leek patch to go to yourself. And then the other one we make is our wild salt. And maybe you can just quickly describe, you can keep picking if you want, Bo, and I can follow you. But maybe you can describe the process for making the wild salt and what that looks like.
Yeah. So when we pick our leaves, we'll chop them up just like into thirds, and then I dehydrate them. And then a well dehydrated plant, dried plant, should actually look the same color as the fresh plant. So the dried leaves are bright green, and we store them. And then when we go to make our wild salt, we grind the leek leaves that are dried down to a powder. And then we blend that with our spruce tip infused sea salt, and another native plant that grows along the shorelines in this region called sweet gale, which kind of has a black pepper and bay flavor to it. So then this all-purpose seasoning salt has the onion garlic flavor of wild leeks, a little bit of a citrusy flavor from the spruce tips, and then it's nice black pepper flavor from the sweet gale. And it's by far one of our most popular spices. I mean, in terms of recipes, anywhere that you would go to put salt and pepper on something, wild salt does wonderful. Just really adds a really lovely local flavor and rounds out any dish really well.
Yeah, I love putting the wild salt on my eggs in the morning. The other one I've actually been doing a little bit of lately that's been kind of fun. So I've been hard boiling eggs, and then I cut the egg in half and I put a daub of mayonnaise on top of it. I've been using the avocado mayonnaise lately, but I mix the mayonnaise with a little bit of the wild leek vinegar, and then I sprinkle just a touch of the wild leek salt on it afterwards. And it's a really quick, but like super nutritious and really delicious lunch snack if you use a good quality mayonnaise there. So that's been kind of a fun one I've been doing lately. So we're probably going to let it go right now, and we still got a bunch to harvest today. I said we got about half a bag there. We picked 30 pounds the other day, and I think we're trying to do about half that today. So thanks for tuning in for us. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. And how's it taste?
So good, leaky.
So leaky. You know, one of the other things that's fun when we're out here, when we're out harvesting, is just all the other cool natural things we come across. So up in the tree, probably won't see it from here. We think there's a broad-winged hawk's nest up above us. So that's been kind of a fun little nature discovery of the day. So anyways, we'll leave it there for now, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to check out our wild food products, go over to wildmuskoka.com. We certainly appreciate your support, supporting local businesses and supporting sustainable food. Okay, signing off. Time to go pick some more leeks. Cheers.